Hi, I'm Toby.
And I'm Nick.
And welcome to the Pure Property Podcast with Track Capital, where we talk about all things property and property investment. The aim of the podcast is to give you our industry insight and knowledge in bite-sized chunks to help you as investors to invest intelligently. So we've got an episode this week, which is going to be quite sort of a good one for Nick and I to talk about, because it's going to be talking about my trip to Dubai recently, which you may have seen on some of the social networks when we've been posting some of the content we've been putting out. And obviously a lot of our mailers, you would have seen that Nick is now based in Dubai and we are expanding into the Dubai market. So Nick, why don't you sort of take over from here and introduce sort of our listeners to what you're doing out there?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, welcome back, everyone. I think it's been a couple of weeks since we've had the time to sit down and do a podcast with obviously Toby in the UK and me over in the UAE. So yeah, as Toby's touched on, and as many of our listeners will be aware now, that we have expanded our portfolio into the Dubai market. Me and Toby looked at it for a while, looked at what we could access stock-wise out here. You know, looked at the risk profile, the financials, the structures of the deals, and we really made sense for us to make that move. So you would have seen different marketing go out from us, and you will continue to see that. The one thing I'd add is for those strictly focused on the UK market, just bear with us because we are segmenting our approach. So we're not planning to completely market Dubai properties to those that solely have an interest in the UK, and vice versa as well. We're going to pick up a lot of investors that are just focused on Dubai. So bear with us for the next few weeks while we introduce and warm everyone up to the Dubai market. But after that, hopefully it should be a really specialised approach, and we'll continue to put out the quality content we do on the UK market, especially Toby, the market insights every week, the podcasts, and then hopefully we'll do something similar with Dubai as well. So yeah, once we sort of made the decision, I relocated and then started getting on the ground and meeting developers and working out, what type of opportunities we want, where are the best locations. I did live here before years ago, and I've been following the market here, so I am familiar with everything. But once we made that decision to commit, Toby and one of our other sales professionals, Matt, came out and had a good look around, which hopefully, Toby, you had a really good time, but we'll dive into that again shortly. So yeah, we got the chance to see various developers. I think about 4 we met in the end. This was a face-to-face meeting, sitting down, going through all their projects and really learning about the opportunities that they have, their pipeline, their vision as a company, and learning a bit more about their track record and how they operate. So I've got an understanding of the type of developers that are out here. They are slightly, I'd say, larger scale in comparison to what we're used to dealing with in the UK. I think I mentioned this on one of our videos recently, but we do work with typically small to medium-sized developers. Sometimes we work with public companies in the UK, but we're always assessing and having to be extra diligent over the track records and what these companies have done before. Whereas in Dubai, it's very, very transparent. It's very clear. You're talking about tens of thousands of units that have been delivered. So it makes for a really attractive risk profile when assessing the developments. But Toby, I don't know if you want to give your maybe like first impressions of the development companies, and then maybe the products as well, because we did obviously get around to see some.
Yeah, I think firstly, the one thing I did notice is in comparison to the UK market and developers is, and I could be wrong on this side, but it was literally sort of at the forefront of everything I saw really was there's prominent developers out here. When I mean prominent as in they pretty much do most of the developments. So you've got your Damac, you've got your Shoba, you've got Azizi, and Emar as well, obviously, and you see them prominently everywhere. Now, don't get me wrong, they're
not shy with their branding, are they?
No, exactly. It's all in your face. And I think from my point of view, it seems like it's more prominent is in the bigger developments do more. And there are still obviously probably smaller developers in Dubai, but realistically, I suppose probably with the scale of the developments that's currently going on in Dubai, creating new communities, new areas, etc. That's probably why they're at the forefront. Maybe in the future you'll have smaller developers within those, but or different pockets. But that's what I noticed. So probably the best way to describe it to a UK purchaser or just someone here in the UK is it's pretty much like having Taylor Wimpey, Barrett Holmes, Barkley, yeah, all in your face all the time, and they're the ones pretty much doing everything. And there's not really a lot being said about the smaller ones, or you don't really come across the smaller ones as much. Not to say they're not there, but also what I would say is to use those as an example. But then when you look at the spec, the finish, and how they are producing the developments, how they deliver, it's on a different level, I would say, because what you find in the UK, which can sometimes be one of the downsides of using such a large developer when purchasing a property, is the quality control goes down. Because the larger they get, the costings, etc., they rush, they have deadlines, targets, and then what you tend to find is the finished product, which you will hear from a lot of people living in new builds in the UK is, oh, I'm with X developer, large national, maybe even listed company. Yeah, it's terrible. Whereas in Dubai, when you look at these developers who are the prominent, the big ones doing on a big scale, their attention to detail, their finish, everything is still top drawer and top quality, and they take a lot of pride in that. And that's all they like to initially show you when you are speaking to them, how they are the best. They're doing better than maybe their competitor. They love showing that off, and that for me was very positive to see, because I think what sometimes you might have a misconception just thinking of the Dubai market when we tell you we're dealing with big developers. You might think, oh, well, if it's the same as the UK, maybe the quality's not as good. No, it's the complete opposite. In fact, probably the bigger developer, the better the quality, because they have a lot towards their name. They want to show what they can do and how they do it. So that to me was probably something that I noticed straight away. Is that the gist of it, would you say, Nick?
Yeah, I think there certainly is a large presence of niche developers here as well. You get a lot from other areas of the Middle East, India, Pakistan as well, coming in and developing and building out projects in the UK. I actually went out on 4 viewings yesterday for my personal residence. And to be honest, they were all smaller niche developers. One's project was their second project. And this was in a, I'd say, almost like a commuter belt location. When you say commuter belt by Dubai standards, you're talking 20 minutes drive to the main area, or main areas. But yeah, the quality was not really there, to be honest. They just didn't execute. So when you compare that in looking at what we saw from the more mainstream and heavily branded, heavily marketed developers, it's absolutely worlds apart. So yes, you get a big brand name, but I'd say the product is definitely there in terms of the finished examples that we saw as well. So it goes to show you, as well as looking at things like location, the returns, the finances, you've got to consider who you're partnering with and what you're actually going to end up with physically, not what you're looking at in the brochure or on paper. But I think the other thing as well, Tobi, is when you came over, obviously we were looking at a lot of the dominant key areas where people will want to invest, i.e. downtown, the marina, the Palm, and these new master communities, MBR City, etc., which are being built. And yeah, they're often sites are often purchased up in these areas in quite large scale by the bigger guys. Having said that, what you'll find is in between these major areas, which everyone knows about, you'll see pockets where the niche developers build. One thing that I think is different to other world cities, because Dubai's 3.3 soon to be 5.8 million over the next 10-20 years. So you're comparing to London, to Hong Kong, to Sydney, etc. What I do find about Dubai is it's far more accessible, both from a developer level. We're speaking about developers here. We are used to speaking to developers consistently as well as investors. So just bear with us. But from a development and construction level, it is accessible as well. So you can pick up sites, 15 minutes out of Dubai and start to build there. And then from an investor level, that's reflected in your ability to enter the market. So you'll find that the entry levels are lower, thus your yields are higher. So yeah, there's a lot happening in Dubai on both the construction side, development side, as well as plenty of opportunities for entry level investors to go in and start to build a portfolio, which is hopefully something we're going to help everyone do.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there, and I suppose one way to put it is, at the moment, Dubai is sort of building and expanding, and it's really sort of getting off the ground. I know it has been for some time, but you have to remember, if you're building what would seem like little, I wouldn't say little, but London cities, but all across Dubai, to showcase Dubai, etc. And like you said, large areas which are being built out. Of course, it's not going to be a small developer that's going to be building these. It's going to be the larger ones. Hence why they're probably so prominent at this stage, building the big schemes out. And then you have got the pockets, so that does make sense there. And in terms, and touching on what you just sort of finished on, and investors and sort of entering the Dubai market and building portfolio. So from your point of view, being on the ground, what would you say is the reason why you see Dubai as a good market for someone, let's say Mr. and Mrs. Joe Bloggs here in the UK, used to buy a UK property? What would you say would be a reason for them to consider a Dubai property investment?
Well, I'd say it's almost the same reasons why you would consider a UK investment, just in a different market. So what's the market performance like? Well, let's look at that on two bases: the level of transactions, thus the capital growth, and the potential rental income that you can produce. So at the moment, the activity here is exceptionally high. As a result, the prices are showing that the increases have been significant in the past, I'd say probably 12 to 18 months, and that's expected to continue. And then when you look at the rental yield side of things, you've got a number of plays that you can make. One that we're very, very big on is serviced accommodation in the short let market. So, buying in one of these key locations that we speak about, and renting it on a short-term basis and pushing up that rental yield. So you're going to generate that 8-9% net return, rather than that 4 or 5% net on a long-term basis. So looking at the future, looking at the capital growth and the rental yields, that for me is two of the main reasons. But you've got to remember what's underpinning that. Underpinning that is the demand, which is driven by population growth, and the population growth is being stimulated by the government in Dubai through various initiatives. So foreign business ownership, various visa plays, being able to buy into the country and get a visa and start a business is the massive driver for people coming here and staying here. So yeah, there's growth in Dubai, both in terms of the brand and people physically coming here, which in result is pushing up property values and what will generate strong returns for investors in the future. And if you compare that to a city like Preston or Sheffield, I can tell you now the level of development here and the demand is on a different scale. So yes, the UK is very mature. It's got a robust legal system, and it's a very safe bet. But I think Dubai has reached a stage now where it can offer very, very similar security with that underpinning return, and even a holiday home if you want it for a few weeks of the year as well, which is always a bonus.
Yeah, I think the one thing with Dubai which stood out, and one of the reasons why I was so confident when we made the decision to enter the Dubai market, and it was only cemented even further when I came out there, was, for me, my one concern about sort of expanding into an overseas property market is always the unknown, the risk, the horror stories of people buying properties in Portugal, Spain. They don't even get off the ground. It's dodgy backhanders, and you're dealing with local mafias, and you have no idea of the local
Sounds
politics.
like Liverpool.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so I think when you hear those horror stories, again, because it is a market unknown, it is very sort of worrying, and you probably wouldn't be as forthcoming to make that jump. But I think the Dubai market, as you touched on, it has stability. you know the developers that you're dealing with are going to deliver as well. So even if they're 3 years off plan, their track record speaks volumes. As a country as well, they wouldn't let any of that go on, because you have to remember Dubai is trying to bring itself at the forefront of the world economy, and the world in general, hence sort of the expo being there at the moment, etc., etc. So a lot is riding on these developers, developments, and the money, the, as you mentioned, the government, etc., what they're doing to push this. It just gives me, especially as an individual, faith in it as a market, and all the fundamentals of the property market. You can see the similarities with the UK market as well. So I think if you're making the transition as a UK investor into a foreign or overseas market, this is probably, in my opinion, one of the easiest you can do. And also, one of the main benefits is when you are actually in Dubai, they all speak the language, English, prominently. It very much still has the same feel. There's a lot of UK citizens out there. So again, that sort of basis of when you are over there, it doesn't feel too much like a foreign country. So you have the benefits of a new market, but you still have familiarities that give you that comfort and ease when investing in a market, as you do with the UK. So I think for me, that's definitely a bonus. And I think the more our investors learn about this, the more they may be sort of incentivized to have a strong consideration in really considering the UK, the UK, really considering the Dubai market seriously.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, actually. They're very pro non-residents and pro real estate and development, and just general pro business out here. So it's a great culture for being from overseas and coming over. Exactly what I've done and what I did back in 2014. So it's one of those places where I think you have to come and experience. And then luckily what some of the developers do is they allow investors to come and visit after they paid a reservation fee. So they'll get complimentary flights, hotel stays, they'll get a tour of Dubai and a tour of specific products. They'll literally speak you through everything from start to finish, and they'll pay for it all as well, just to give you the flavour and the understanding of what you're investing into, and what you can expect in return. So I think that's a really, really big point. And just the other thing I wanted to say, without diving into too much of a sales pitch, is we are, ultimately there to support our investors. So we've met with developers. We've seen, some good, some bad. We are getting a real good grasp of the formalities and the legal process here. So our job is to help our investors get from start to finish. So from picking out and being overwhelmed by developments up to the point of getting that rental income from your account, into your bank account. So we're going to help at the start with selecting the developer you want to work with, or selecting, the location you want to focus on, and picking out that premium development, that premium unit, whether it be apartment or even a villa. We're going to guide you through the legal purchase process, which you've already been through. You've already done multiple transactions, and we're going to help you with any questions along the way. And of course, construction visits, construction updates, site visits. I'm on the ground here building a team, so we can, go to site, take photos, we can meet contacts, we can meet you personally on the ground in Dubai. And then obviously when we get to practical completion of these developments, we can arrange for the handovers, sort the keys, sort the snagging out for you. We can get the properties let, and get the tenants in there. And as I say, up to the point where investors are starting to earn income. And you've got to bear in mind, through all that process, we don't charge an additional fee. We don't charge any premium to investors at all. We're paid by the developers. So you can get that, reliable contact on the ground, effectively free of charge. Yes, we'll introduce you to third parties, but hopefully we can act as a designated point of contact, and guide you through that process from start to finish. So if you haven't already, it's definitely worth doing some online reading, doing some research. We're going to produce some content on the Dubai market, but it could be a great diversification play if you've already, got properties in the likes of Manchester, Liverpool, and then maybe in the southeast of the country as well. Have a look at what Dubai can offer, and what you can get for your money. And yeah, it's certainly something we think you should explore. But maybe, is there anything else that you would add, Toby, in terms of maybe a myth about Dubai, which you've since found untrue, perhaps, after your visit?
The first Yeah. The first one straight away, which was a myth that was bust, was the lending. So my first sort of thought process or knowledge about going into buying a property was, well, you have to buy cash. Obviously, the Dubai banks, UAE banks, etc. You won't be able to buy with a mortgage as easy as you can in the UK. And I've since found out when speaking with mortgage brokers out there and learning more, speaking to developers, etc., that is not the case. Lending is actually quite favourable out there. Yes, if you're not a resident, they tend to look for 50% loan to value. But when you look at the values that we have access to property wise, that is definitely doable for a lot of our clients and investors. So if you are looking to utilize a mortgage, which again in turn does boost up that return on investment for you, it's actually achievable and attainable. So that is something to bear in mind, because yeah, as I said, that's also another thing that the government is encouraging, and they want the banks to encourage money to come into the country, and for non-Dubai residents to be purchasing there and living there. So to be able to do that, they need to open the lending to be more accessible, which they've done, and you can see that. So there's more and more lending going on. So that's a very good thing, because as I mentioned, I think some misconceptions is, as an overseas purchaser, if you're here in the UK and buying out there, oh, I need the cash to buy something for 150, 200 grand. I just haven't got that. Well, that's not the case. And again, I think that was one of the biggest sort of myths that I found wasn't true.
Cool. Interesting. Yeah. There's a couple of bits to pick up on there. The first one being, you mentioned about the government, encouraging and wanting people to be here. We've got to remember there's a reason they're doing that. It's for money, right? So they're commercially incentivized to encourage investors and to encourage development, more business, more spending in the local economy, which will allow them to grow and meet the very, very ambitious targets that they have. We know Dubai builds, the largest malls in the world, the largest towers, the largest Ferris wheels. So they want to continue to grow that Dubai brand, and they're going to do that by building wealth through tourism and through its residents. The second point is, yes, on the financing, we haven't really spoke about the type of investment structures that are here, but yeah, so you can get LTVs up to 55% for non-residents, typically 50 to 55%. And there is also very generous payment plans in place. So what you get here, what you don't get in the UK, or get very, very, very rarely in the UK, is post-handover payment plans, which effectively means you obviously pay a certain amount of the property value during the construction period in staged payments, and then you can take the keys, take ownership of the property, start generating rental income, get a mortgage, but you still have, sometimes 1, 2, 3 years left of paying off the balance of the property. So yeah, it can be really, really favourable for those that are looking to stretch their capital, not put all their money up front into something, and just make it a bit more forgiving. And again, another reason why it's a bit easier to enter the market. But I think payment plans would be a big one for our investors. And the other thing, just quickly as well, is that all the new schemes are freehold. So we get a lot of objections in the UK with regards to lease lengths and unnecessary charges. Here, it's much more minimised in terms of the properties being freehold. So half the challenges you think about, you don't have to worry about. So when we start to put all these factors together, i.e. good developer brand, a great finished product, favourable mortgage terms, favourable payment plans, high rental yields, ongoing demand, low entry level prices, it makes a really great use another word, investment case. It makes a really positive investment case. And, it really goes to show when you compare one country to another, if that be Dubai to UAE to the UK, it can be very, very favourable indeed. But yeah, hopefully that gives everyone a good overview. Is there any other bits you'd like to add maybe about Dubai, Toby, in general, what the guys should think about?
Yeah, I think just again honing on the fact that definitely consider it if you're a UK investor, and you're fond of the UK market. Definitely start doing some research and do due diligence, because again, at Track Capital, the one thing that we like to speak about when speaking with clients is diversification of portfolios where it suits the client anyway. And this is a great diversification into a new market and a new country, which is one to strongly consider, as Nick mentioned, when you look at the rental demand, what's going on in Dubai as well. The price points, I think that's probably another myth that I had, not pre obviously visiting Dubai, but pre us actually fully looking into it, was the prices. I think when you look at the locations that we have access to stock at, the prices are actually very fair. If you were going to pay that for one in a similar location, say like a London or even a commuter distance location to London, it's a lot more favorable, and the amenities that come with that as well. So it's not just the product, the apartment or the property you're buying, it's the amenities you get on top of that, which I think was good. But yeah, I think the price levels is definitely more accessible than people may first think. But yeah, I would just say, look, we're here on hand to speak you through. And again, one of the reasons we think it's a good thing, with Nick being on the ground there, myself still be on the ground here, as a UK investor, or not just a UK investor, we deal with a lot of overseas investors, but how we operate here as a company currently, we are going to carry on that operation within Dubai. So the integrity, the diligence, the consultative approach, so we can do it in our manner, which again, especially this will benefit UK investors. We will talk you through the process as we are a UK company to make that more seamless and streamlined for you, so it won't be as foreign going through the process. Of course, the process itself will be foreign, but how we deal with it, how we deal with the diligence, and how we deal with taking you through those steps will be more sort of at ease and more in the sense of how it is in the UK, which I think can be an issue with people doing it on their own in Dubai. Brand new place, they're dealing with probably Dubai agents who don't understand how the UK property market works and how the process works. So that line of communication can break down. It can be very frustrating and put you off the process completely. Whereas in ourselves, we've got the experience of how it works in the UK, so we can talk you through it in the same way we would, but in the Dubai process. So yes, the process will be different, but how we deal with you and how we relate that with each other as well, because you got to remember, you got DLD in Dubai, which is effectively stamp duty in the UK. But if you told someone what the DLD was, they wouldn't relate it to that. So making that relatable, again, will help our investors go, yeah, actually, that makes sense. That's pretty normal. That's straightforward. That's not scary. Yeah, definitely. So I think that's one of the big bonuses of us being out there and here, and how we're going to be operating going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Great points there. And I think the other thing I'd add is that some of these developers have offices in the UK as well. So Shoba, for example, they've got an office in Park Lane or on Park Lane. So, we can make, even if you're speaking to myself, we can make the connection with Tobi. We can go up to see the developer in London. Alternatively, we can obviously have Zoom calls direct with the development team. They can literally give you a tour of the development models, the show apartments. So a bit of a cliche, but with the technology that's in place, remote investing has become far, far easier as the guys in the Middle East and the Far East, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia drive capital into the UK remotely. A lot of UK guys are doing it overseas as well. So Brits are actually very, very big buyers in the UAE, fourth or fifth big buyers. A lot of that's on the secondary market, being owner-occupiers, as well as the new build and off-plan investment market. So, yeah, there's plenty on offer here. We just want to connect the bridge with our UK investor network and our other overseas guys, as Toby mentioned, to make sure it's seamless and you're doing it correctly, picking the right products, the right developers, the right locations, and getting a good deal, of course.
Excellent. Well, I think that we'll call that a day for this episode, because we are going to be doing another episode soon about Dubai as a property investment market and the fundamentals and why we think you should invest there. I know we've covered some bits and pieces on this one, but this was really just a general episode and podcast to introduce to you what we're doing, what we've done so far and how we see things going. But we will start to do more detailed episodes for the Dubai market. You'll start to see in our weekly newsletters that you will start to have some Dubai articles in there that have relevance and content going forward as well. You'll start to see more coming out by the way of Dubai. And as Nick said, we are going to segregate, so don't worry if you're not interested at all in the Dubai market and you haven't shown interest. We will start to fizzle out you seeing what we're doing in Dubai, and when you can stay focused on UK, because we don't want to bombard you with stuff that you're not interested in. But likewise, on the other hand, if you are interested in any shape or form about the Dubai market, do let us know and we can give you some initial information, even if you don't want to maybe join one of our mailer lists. If it's just I would be interested, can you give me some more information or have a chat? We can do that. But yeah, just feel free to get in touch, obviously, on our usual platforms, social media, email, info@trackcapital.co.uk, or feel free to give one of the team members a call.
Perfect. Yeah. And just to reiterate that, I'd encourage you to do so. A lot of the developers here have fantastic marketing literature. So lots of detailed videos, presentations, webinars, obviously brochures, but you'll be blown away by the presentation and the level of detail that's provided in the due diligence packs and investment packs compared to what you're used to seeing in the UK. So yeah, great to be back on the podcast anyway. And yeah, look forward to speaking to everyone soon.
And don't worry, we'll have some more UK podcasts coming. We won't just get this filled up with Dubai podcasts. So don't worry, we will be back on our UK game as well. But no, thanks for listening and joining us on this one, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.